better.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't want to bombard your client. Here's a flight I did 20 minutes ago.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have
Here's
to go
another
to the
flight.
client. It doesn't have to go to the client.
That's
right?
true. You can
You
build the information up and then once a week send that information to the client.
Yeah. Or just you review it internally, and whenever you want to send it to the client, send it to the client.
Or you could just hammer the client with so much data they just tell you to leave them alone. Good morning.
Good morning, Alex. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. The day after the London Build Expo.
Yeah.
I don't know, you're back there today.
I am, yeah.
While I'm sat here in my cold office, although I have got my heating on, so right. Yeah, it's not too bad. Mm-hmm. Yeah, sounding a bit grotty today. Mm-hmm. I'm just a bit snotty and a bit, I think, today. But hey, we're talking about drones in construction.
We are, yeah.
We are indeed. And what it's all about, and we take some information from the expo yesterday. There was a good day out.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah.
Really interesting to meet a lot of architects, engineers, constructors, tier one contractors. And I think that drones definitely have a big use case, a big sort of future in this vertical. So it's really interesting to talk just from the high level point of view in terms of sort of like what drones can bring to this industry, but also to kind of then talk a little bit more about specifics later on, maybe. So where should we start? Maybe we can start and address why construction is even an important vertical, like, kind of how does the macroscopic industry benefit from drones?
I mean, you've got the cost saving, obviously. Mm-hmm. The industry can massively benefit from digital transformation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
which is a nice word.
Yeah.
When you digitize something, you have it there as a permanent, really. Yeah. And you can grow on on the data that you've acquired. Mm-hmm. That's only the first set, so to speak. Mm-hmm. So you've digitized your asset, your item, mm-hmm. and then you can watch that grow. So you don't only watch it grow in the real world, you mm-hmm. can watch it grow in the digital world as well.
Yeah, yeah.
You can create a digital space for your build environment.
Yeah, I guess what you're going towards is that construction typically is a very physical heavy industry.
Yes.
And the digital replica or transformed version of it is easier to track and easier to see it grow and easier to sort of
exactly. Yeah, you've got it. You've got it there as a constant. You can make changes to that digital asset like you would make changes to your build asset. Build asset being big burly men making things.
Yeah,
out in the wild. That digitization is definitely the future of the construction industry.
Yeah. Digitization not only means data but means information.
Yeah, correct.
Which you can use for data-driven decisions. So
as we always say, information is power.
Yeah. Yeah,
we have said that before, right?
We have. Good. Information is power. Maps equals information. Information equals power.
Information equals power. There you go. Yeah, I knew we'd spoken about that before.
Yeah. We need to print that out and put on a banner or something.
Yeah.
So I guess if you start with that kind of premise that digital, you can track things easier in the digital world, you can make data-driven decisions. Then I think drones is actually like that bridge between the physical world and the digital world, because if you think about it, if you got the physical world on the right hand side and then you've got the digital world on the left hand side, drone with that camera is what is bridging all that stuff.
Yeah, it's what binds those two. Ooh, itchy neck, sorry. Well, it kind of binds those two together, doesn't it? It gives you the opportunity to digitize your asset in 3D space.
Yeah, 3D or sometimes 4D as well, as we'll discuss.
4D space, which we will talk about.
5D?
It is on our list. I don't know if we want to go that far. Do we want to go that far? That's too futuristic for me.
Temperature is the 5D. So So I think, yeah, it's really interesting. I guess the digital twin side of it, which I think the construction industry is quite familiar with outside of drones,
Yes.
really helps bring about an understanding for how drones can be useful. What do you think is a digital twin?
When we talk digital twin, we're not only talking, the outside of a structure, as we saw yesterday. We can also talk about the inside of a structure. Not that that's our remit, but a digital twin, you can actually recreate the whole asset. So, what we do is with our 3D modeling is we recreate the outside of an asset. But as was shown yesterday, you can also recreate the inside of an asset.
Yeah.
But
you can recreate workflows, processes,
exactly
anything you want, really.
Yeah. So, a digital twin, in layman terms, is a kind of digitized in digital space, living, breathing representation of your asset.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I mean, digitally living and breathing. Obviously, it's not. It's not a real thing. But it is. Is a digitized representation of what you are creating. Or created.
Yeah, and it's a two-way street. So you've got information going from the physical world to the digital world, which is the replication process, and then any decisions that are being made using that digital twin get reproduced in the physical world. And then the cycle continues, and you've got a nice little update mechanism going on between physical and the digital, which is great to think. I mean, just from a high level point of view, like, we've come so far, like, as humans, to be able to do something like this. We're reconstructing reality inside our computers. To be able to make decisions off of, which is pretty profound. I mean, we just get in the nitty-gritty. Well, once you get into the nitty-gritty of it, you forget, but like, it's actually quite profound that we can do this.
I mean, you can create you've got back in the day, you'd have drawings, which you still do have, obviously. And you go from your site plan or your drawing. And I'm no builder or architect, but now it looks like we're kind of moving towards the representation of your build site or your asset is now digital, and there'll be less of the drawing side of it, because you can make changes to that digital asset, however you do it in AutoCAD or whatever. You can make changes to that digital asset, and as you said, you can then push that back onto the real world site.
Actually, that's a very interesting point, because we used to always do this, but we used to do it in 2D with initially pen, paper, and then computer programs, and now we've got 3D with cameras and imaging, and 4D with time tracking of all of this, because computing has enabled us to be able to store these massive amounts of data sets to track the asset over time, which is really interesting, because it is the same thing, but it's just we're adding more and more dimensions and more data sets to it.
With the progress of the cloud. You can, there's more opportunity to store that data and have that data accessible by anyone from anywhere. You no longer have a your kit at home or in your office with all your imagery on it. It's out there in cyberspace. That's such a horrible word. I hate the word cyberspace. But it's cyberspace. But it is out there, in the cloud, in cyberspace, and it's readily accessible. So you don't have to have a big board meeting with your paper laid down on the desk with everyone kind of looking at it and going, "Oh, that needs to go there." You can now do this stuff remotely. You can view your digital twin remotely. You can access that data remotely. So your architect might be, he might have gone to Honolulu. Why I picked Honolulu, I don't know. But, he may have gone on holiday, but you need him to do something. That data is accessible for him to be able to pick, or her, to be able to pick up wherever they might be.
Exactly.
I know we digressed a bit away from digital twins there, but it all kind of
No, but it is. I mean, it is true.
Blends in.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you can access the digital world from any point in the physical world as long as you have an internet connection, right? So, and I think that's also an extreme power. The fact that location doesn't matter anymore, you're location agnostic, is a power enabled by digital twins. And I think in the present world of like teams working hybrid, teams working remote, people, large organizations, even construction organizations being distributed across different countries. I think having that living, breathing replica and then accessible from anywhere, any office, anytime, is another benefit that you just don't have in the physical world. You know, you're not going to fly people to the same site all the time. So
no, not at all. I mean, obviously that reduces costs, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. All those transportation costs are gone.
Yep. I mean, lower. I mean, as we've said time and time again with what we do with Hammer Missions, you can lower the cost of the operation.
Yeah.
But make you can obviously higher the rate of the surveys, etc. It's just it's a cost-effective way of doing things.
Yeah. And since the operation, which is basically flying the drone to capture that data, if that's super low cost, you can do it many more times.
Yeah.
And with the whole living, breathing thing, you need data quite frequently. And so you can fly the drone and collect high quality data, assuming using the right software to fly the drone, the right software to process the data. You get high quality digital twin data at a frequent rate, which allows you to build this living, breathing digital thing. So,
and obviously with the planning side of things, if you've already got the plan done with your pre-planning software, the plan's already there. You don't have to replan.
Yeah,
you can just use the same flight plan that you've already had, and repeat that process over and over and over again.
Yeah,
over the progress of the build.
Exactly. Yeah,
adding to your digital twin.
Yeah, just press a button, repeat the flight, get the same data over and over again.
Weather dependent.
Weather dependent.
Always weather dependent.
Yeah, unless you have an IP rated drone, which also is question. I mean, depends on what weather conditions. I mean, light rain maybe, but I guess you still have the problem of the data not being as good because of the camera. So yeah.
Well, you're flying somewhere that is hot and never rains.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't know. I'd like to be somewhere hot where it never rains, to be fair.
For drone data collection, that's actually probably a good thing. But we know that overcast conditions are better for 3D models.
We do. Yeah. We do indeed.
So,
yeah.
So
that's a whole different ballgame.
We've spoken about. We should do another video on that.
We've spoken about that before.
Yeah.
So so I suppose that shifts us on to sort of what use cases we'd have with drones in construction. I mean, there are many.
Yeah.
Sort of starting with the pre-site survey.
Yeah. So I guess before we talk about pre-site, I think it's interesting, or useful to mention that, I mean, this is probably stating the obvious again, but construction is something that has a very well-defined start, middle, end, or it's a very sort of a process done in phases, and projects need to get planned, they need to get replanned many times, and then lots of things need to happen, costings, budgets, whatnot. But I think that because there are lots of phases in construction, the idea of drones and data, I think, can benefit many different stages. And it's interesting.
Well, they kind of go hand in hand. Each process of a build will happily go hand in hand with a drone flight of whatever means. So I mean, starting with the pre-site survey.
Yeah.
You can take the drone up. You can use you probably use the same mapping plan for the whole process. Unless you wanted to obviously do 3D, then you might have to change it slightly. Pre-site survey, you can take the drone up and you can survey the site. So the construction company or whomever has a top-down idea of exactly where their site's going to be and what issues might lie on that site.
Yeah. And usually for a contractor, it's important to be able to effectively communicate with either the architect or the surveyor or the end customer of what's on the site today. And sometimes I think because the architect already has not just a plan, not just a 2D plan, but also a 3D plan, which can be overlaid on top of pre-site survey. So, if you look at this, if a contractor, construction company has an accurate representation of what the site looks like, you can pull in data from the architect or the surveyor to sort of build an understanding for what the actual end result will look like for the end customer, which is really useful because you want to keep your
handy,
clients,
isn't it? Yeah, you can obviously give that information to your client, keep your client informed on every step of the journey.
Ooh.
The journey.
Yeah. Book title for this week.
Every step of the journey by Alex Ball. Commander Alex Ball.
Commander Ball. That's amazing. So site progress. So I guess like moving on from like pre-build to during construction. What are the things we can look at?
It's site monitoring, isn't it? So you can do a progress report. Keep your client happy. Your client might want to know how far you've got, maybe 2 flights a month or 1 flight a month. And you can give them progress on how the build goes. You might be under a strict time frame. Each they might have set out a time frame of what needs to be built when, what needs to go where when. And with that site monitoring, you can show them exactly how far along the build is without them even going to site.
Exactly. Again, the digital the location independent nature of these things, right? So they don't have to be on the site.
No.
And also like you can review how the actual build is going, which is probably like the most important thing during the build, that you want to make sure that your timelines are correct and your things are going according to budget and timelines. So many things. The real world is complex, as we know. The physical world has lots of entropy, lots of distortion, lots of
there's stuff in the way, Varun.
Stuff in the way. So I think you probably want to keep a handle on how things are going and what's going on site and whether things are moving according to plan. So I would even say like kind of a flight every week, if not every day, to kind of be able to track what's going on. And if the cost of the operation is so low, why not capture more data to be able to build this living, breathing,
I guess it all depends, if it falls in their budget. And then you've obviously got the issues of, weather and accessibility, etc. But you're right, the more data, the better. Obviously, you don't want to bombard your client. Here's a flight I did 20 minutes ago.
Well, it doesn't have to go to the client. It doesn't have to go to the client.
Well, that's true.
Right?
You can build the information up and then once a week send that information to the client.
Or just you review it internally, and whenever you want to send it to the client, send it to the client.
Or you could just hammer the client with so much data they just tell you to leave them alone.
So,
but I mean, site progress monitoring is, and I know that happens a lot. Whether it be a third party drone op or an in-house drone team, that does happen, and I've certainly done it in the past as well. Where you go back to site maybe once or twice a month, then take progress shots. Yes.
So
which
that
leads on to you were going to go there, but I'm going to go there instead.
Go for it.
So your post site, your post build survey, basically. When it's been built, you can gather all that data, and again, that's when you can you might have been building a digital twin all the way through. Or you might wait to the end and build a digital twin at the end, so they know what they've got and they can adapt on that.
I would say that given what we talked about digital twins, it's probably more important for them to build that from the get-go. Because if they build something at the very end, it's almost like then at that point, you're just basically showing what the end result is like. I think all the benefits along the way, and actually before you even start the process, they're sort of lost. So it's no longer living, breathing. It just becomes one twin.
Yeah. So I suppose you build it from basically your pre-site survey all the way through to post-build.
Post-build, yeah.
So they can see the progress not only in photographic format, but in a 3D format. So you watch your asset grow from mud to full build.
Yeah. And I guess that's when the remit of actually checking whether things have been built correctly kind of falls into the hands of the surveyors. So as we learned yesterday about facades and how, given all the given sort of like catastrophic incidents over the last few years, the sort of the scrutiny on facade safety has become quite important. So if you've been building this digital twin all along throughout the entire process, and now you hand it off to the surveyor that can continue working on the twin, but from a facade point of view, it just helps check so many boxes with one consolidated.
And it also gives them a representation of what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
You can't go and finish a building and then go, cool, well, there's your facade out in the wild, go and have a look at it. So much better to have a digital representation of what you have to go and work on.
Yeah.
And even then you can continue to update that.
Yeah.
That 3D, that digital twin.
Yeah.
For however long you need to.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the interesting aspect, that you can have all these different stakeholders involved at different points of the journey, and you can maintain that for as long as you need to. So I mean, getting people involved, but at the end of the day, people are looking at this data not just because it looks pretty, because they want to make decisions, right? Like they want to kind of. What are some of the data-driven decisions that people can make from digital twins captured using drones?
Well, you can if you timeline that data, you can say, well, what did the data look like last week, or what did my 3D twin look like last week compared with what it looks like this week?
Yeah.
How much progress have we made? Why hasn't that bit of roof been put on yet? There's this whole kind of process of you can assess your asset from a distance and make those decisions. You no longer have to go, as we said earlier, no longer have to go to site and go, I need to get off some scaffold and have a look up there and see what you've done, or a cherry picker or whatever. You can sit in your boardroom, or you can sit at home, you can be on a Zoom call, and you can say, let's have a look at progress from last week to this week. Well, why hasn't that been done yet? Oh, because of X, Y, Z. And you can keep that, as we've said all the way through it. You can push that 3D twin will basically grow as your site grows. And therefore, you can assess that. You can assess your asset all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
And
good.
Absolutely. So. Yeah, you're keeping a handle on things. You're asking questions like, what is the progress from one day to the other? As you mentioned, what do the holding lines look like? What is the cut and fill on site at the moment? What is the, is everything on track, on time? Are we ahead of time? Can we do something? Are we sticking to plan? Are we deviating from plan? Who needs to be involved? So it's just so many interesting business decisions that can come from this data. Obviously, it's all unique to the actual projects and the actual contractor involved. But the fact that all of those decisions can now be enabled, and then the drone data is underpinning that, means that you're getting to a point in the industry where there is clear ROI on the drone program, if that's the way you've gone, or even if you're working with third party, you've got clear ROI from the data. So I think, getting to those decisions as soon as possible, sort of like the critical path, the shortest path to the decision, is extremely important from the drones and construction point of view, because the moment you get to that decision, you get that aha moment. Okay, cool, I can do this now, and then you could probably understand how do you need to plan your sort of following surveys to be able to get to the right data to make the right decisions, and sort of like do that over and over and over again.
And that's where drones kind of advance that. They kind of speed up your timeline, so to speak, because you've got that digital data that you look at over and over and over again and scrutinize.
Yeah.
Scrutinize is a good word. Why haven't I used that recently?
Yeah. Scrutinize.
Write that down.
Yeah. Physical world under scrutiny.
Yeah. Totally and utterly.
Yeah.
From there you can, as we've been playing around and now put into practice with hammer missions, you can also do, you can measure areas on site as well.
Yeah.
Stockpile measurements, for example, you can measure how much, if you've got a concrete or a pile of dirt that's been moved from one area to the other, you can measure that amount of dirt now from the sky, which is great. Measure that amount of dirt, so how much, or you might have to get someone in to remove that. You can figure out how much the cost is to remove it. Or if you need to put it on another part of the site, have you got enough space on that part of the site to be able to put that much volume of dirt over there? Dirt, such a word. Same with concrete. You could have bricks. Piles of stockpile measurements.
Yeah, exactly.
Whatever you've got.
Yeah, whatever that needs to be measured, and this is measurement in 3D, right? So all you're saying is volumetric. So volume obviously is 3D, and so it's really interesting that drone data can now give you the same level of flexibility in terms of measuring things that you would have in the physical world. And in fact, I would imagine that I'm unsure how you would do it in the physical world. What are the methods used in construction to do it in the physical world? But
I wouldn't know either.
But whatever the method is, it's just going to be a lot more time consuming than basically just taking all these photographs using drones, which is basically a 20-30 minute, at least one battery flight, and depending on the site size. And then, just pumping all that data into a software platform that creates your 3D model. And then from that 3D model, you just make the volumetric measurements, which is,
you can find out with the measurement of, said bricks or, or dirt or whatever you've got.
Yeah.
And then, it's there.
Yeah, same day,
Same day, within obviously how long it takes to process that 3D image, but pretty much same day. Without having someone physically go to site and measure that amount of, dirt or whatever you've got, bricks, concrete.
The other application, which is related, is the sort of whole cut and fill side of things, where, to be able to get the ground sort of even and kind of like in the right profile for construction. I think there are these methods where some part of the ground which are kind of higher in elevation are sometimes cut to and the parts that are lower are kind of filled in with that cut material. So,
and again, you can measure that using volumetric measurements.
Yeah,
you may want to level off that big mound there to put a house on it. But how much volume is inside that mound?
Yeah.
You can now measure it from the sky.
Yeah, from the sky. Now, it has to be said that these measurements will be an estimate. They're not going to be the ground truth in terms of, you're not actually weighing the material to figure out how much volume there is based on density and all of that kind of, it's not a physical, it's a measurement based on imaging. And so depending on the drone's location accuracy and also the way you draw the measurement in a 3D program and the way what points are picked up, there will always be a margin of error. You can get more and more accurate in terms of the actual
that
measurement.
all comes down to high quality drone data, which we've spoken about so many times.
That was the first pod, wasn't it?
It was our first podcast, was high quality data. But it's of a massive advantage to have high quality data. Because further down the line it will affect whatever measurements or 3D digital twin that you create it has a massive impact on what you're trying to create or achieve. High quality data, folks, that's what it's all about.
That's what literally that's what it's all about.
It is. It is.
And then high quality decisions follow from high quality data. So
they do indeed.
So
that's probably tagline that.
That's
high
true,
quality data equals high quality decisions.
Yeah, it's true. Information equals power.
Trademark Hammer Missions. 2022.
2022. Almost 2023.
Nearly, yeah.
Nearly.
Close.
So yeah, and then you've also got slope measurements. If you want to figure out, what the slopes on a site look like. And you can also do you can sort of inspect if there are buildings on site already, if there are structures on site, depending on what phase of construction this project's in. You can look at
measure the volume of the interior space of a build.
Yeah.
Again, as we said, it won't be completely 100% accurate, but it will give you an idea of the size of a space.
Exactly. Yeah. Depending if it's an open space, that can be seen with a drone, of course.
Of course. Yeah. If it's got a roof on it, it might be slightly more difficult.
Yeah.
But again,
yeah,
high quality drone data will make your measurements more accurate.
Yeah. And then this sort of kind of comes to, because we were talking about the indoors for a little bit, kind of, or volume of space inside, because I think once things start getting built and to the point where, you've got the indoor representation of it, well, you've got, I don't know, structures that have come together so where you can actually see the building or site, whatever you're making, this structure is now in existence. Then I think that's where, the external side of it can still be exported into the 3D models from external surveys can still be exported into like CAD formats.
Yep.
So you can export that into CAD formats to integrate with other third-party software used in construction in AutoCAD or similar environments.
Yeah.
And you can look at sort of build verification, kind of like to verify whether things have been built accordingly or not, and things like that. So
you can integrate it into BIM environments, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. So whether it's AutoCAD or Revit or whatever BIM-based software platform the company is using, now you've got another data source coming in from aerial imagery of this is what the actual, this was the plan, this is what has been built.
Yeah.
How do they match up, and do we need to do anything?
Data is power. The more the better.
Yeah.
And compatible data, so you can use it in different formats.
Yeah.
I mean, pure digitization is the way it's all going.
Yeah. And I think the interesting challenge at the moment that I see in the industry, which will get solved over time, is that I think there are a number of different platforms that construction industry is using for different things. So you've got your actual drawings and plannings, and all the design software has actually got all the designs for what needs to be built. But then all the sort of, let's say, 360 walkthroughs of the inside of the building is on another platform. And then obviously the drone imagery and the data 3D models for verification of how the build is going, all that might be on a drone platform. And so we see this at Hammer Missions where, like, for example, we host all the drone data and kind of all the high quality drone data, but then we don't have the indoor of the data, which might be on a third party platform.
Yep.
But I think the holy grail for construction at some point will be a consolidated view into from planning to verification in the field to the indoor walkthrough,
a digital fly through.
Yeah, of the
whole process,
the whole thing. Which is a ginormous task, because I think it's very hard for one company to be able to do all of these different things. Yeah, they're very specialized.
You'd need an integration of different software houses to be able to create that pure digital beginning to end walkthrough.
Yeah,
fly through.
Yeah,
it's a better word. Fly through.
Yeah. Or even layers, I mean, if you're not flying through them, you're kind of just layering, okay, different things, bring up, show me what was planned, show me what was built, the inside, the outside, the measurement of this particular part of the building. What was the actual plan, and has it been built accordingly? And so kind of, slicing and dicing data in 3D, 4D across different platforms,
and telling a story of how it was to how it is and how it might be.
Yeah.
So like a pure construction story, but all in digital.
Digital. Because that's a lot of value for the end customer who's getting something built, right? So that's a lot of value. And I think this kind of brings us to, I think the reason why this is really hard to do is because obviously they've got different software platforms that do different things. They can integrate today and agree on interoperable formats, and they can agree on sort of API integrations to send data back and forth. I think that's the way forward for today. But I think the other reason why it's also hard is because there are many different stakeholders involved in construction, right?
There are.
And every software platform is focused on a different stakeholder per se. And you've got to make sure, obviously as software companies, you're building for someone or some particular type of company or type of customer. And so you can't build for everybody, otherwise you build for nobody.
No, exactly that. So it's finding an integration between those stakeholders and those software houses, to be able to create your complete package.
Yeah, and then aligning all the stakeholders to sort of come on board and interact with all these different software platforms, so that they understand where the data is for what they're trying to do, and they can kind of just drop in and out of different databases, platforms. Because if someone needs to look at the design, go to maybe a CAD platform. Someone needs to look at the external, maybe go to the drone platform. Someone looks at the inside, go to a third party inside platform. So I think definitely getting the different stakeholders aligned and understanding where the different where the different types of data lives, and how they can access it is definitely
could be challenging. Probably is challenging.
It's already challenging. And so we need to find a solution to this over time. So that's pretty much kind of where we're going with the stakeholders. But I think it's going to be an interesting future, one way or the other.
I mean, it's only advancing, isn't it? From what we saw yesterday, there was so much information to take in about the digitization of the construction industry. It's quite mind-blowing, really.
It is, 100%.
It used to just be bricks and mortar and big burly men building the stuff, and now it's taken a leap.
It has
massive leap forwards. I mean, there's obviously still big burly men building stuff, because you're not going to build anything without them. But and it's the other side of it. The digitization of the construction industry is definitely on the up.
100%. And where drones play a role is not so much the drone itself, but it's the data that comes out of the drone.
Of course. I mean, it's going to take X amount of time to fly over a site. As long as you got as long as you've got a decent camera on it, you've got your exposure settings, everything set correctly on the drone. That's the data collection part's the easy bit. It's what you do with that data once you've got it. Is the most important part of it.
The data collection is easy if you're using the right software.
Correct. It is. It is.
Otherwise,
we know this. We know this to be true.
We know this.
That's what we do.
I mean, we've got a whole video on kind of all the challenges in data collection if you don't use. I mean, it's not just about using the software; it's also about understanding so many things. Not just about sort of just things like photography as well. Quite important, exposure.
It's understanding how to collect that data, followed by how to process that data correctly. You don't just chuck a drone in the air and go, woohoo, I'm going to take a load of photos. It's how to collect that data correctly to be able to get the output that you require. That took some brains at this time of morning for me to say that. There you
go. And basically, if you collect that high quality data, if you understand the process to collect that high quality data, and that can underpin basically everything that's to follow, whether it's a pre-build survey, whether it's a in progress construction site monitoring, or if it's a post-build sort of digital twin that's being shared with the client. So it's sort of, everything ultimately stems back to kind of this idea of high quality data.
And that it does.
And potentially in the future, high quality data consolidated in one single view, so that there is less fragmentation of data. I think those are the two main challenges the industry will probably have to deal with over time. But
it'll happen.
Yeah, it'll happen.
It'll happen.
Yeah.
It's the consolidation of all that data into one solid platform. Is something that definitely needs to happen and will happen. We'll just see who comes up with it first. And how good it is.
Who comes up with the best one typically is more.
There'll be lots of them, but who comes up with the best one? Yeah, you're right. You are right. Now I know you've got to run off for day 2, haven't you? For
I've got
London, the Build Expo. So we will leave it there. I think we've covered off a few winners there. I'm sure there'll be more information from today's jolly over to the London Build Expo. So as per usual, thanks for watching. You can subscribe to us on this here YouTube. We also put out an audio podcast once a week, available on all your podcast platforms. Didn't say repositories this week because it's not a nice word. Directories. And there you go. Happy days.
Brilliant.
Cool. Well, have an awesome afternoon, Varun.
Thanks, Alex.
I will hear all about it. And catch up with you soon.
Catch you later.
Cheers.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.